Hello, my dear students. This is Brijesh Kumar. Today I am going to teach you soliloquy, aside, and monologue. I will also tell you the differences among these three literary terms. First of all, let us see what is a soliloquy. A soliloquy is a literary device. What is then a literary device? Dear students, a literary device is a technique that is used by a writer to convey a message and develop the plot of that particular work. And it is made of two Latin terms. The first one is solo, that means to oneself. Another one is loquo, that means I talk. Thus, the meaning of a soliloquy is I talk to myself. How can, in that case, we know how a person talks to oneself? For that, we need to think about ourselves. At times, it happens that we talk to ourselves because of the reason that we think we are motivated by a certain kind of condition, and that condition, that situation stimulate or prompts us to think about, but we do not tell every time what we think. We think, and in a way we talk. That thinking is a kind of talking to one's own self. And it becomes very difficult to express what a character thinks under such circumstances in a work of literature. And for that purpose, soliloquy is used. Soliloquy tells us what a character thinks from within. And this also signifies the complexity of any character. Dear students, there are some certain features of a soliloquy that I am going to tell one by one. A soliloquy reveals the innermost private thoughts of a character. Other thoughts which are not private are not incorporated in a soliloquy because those thoughts usually people convey. There is no need to express them in private. They are not directed towards the audience. These thoughts are not directed towards the audience, rather they are directed towards one's own self. The character talks to one's own self, not to the audience. Other characters who are present on stage or off stage, they are not supposed to be listening these things because they are not kind of supposed to be around that particular character, and therefore they are depicted as if they were not listening. Next very important feature is this, that in a soliloquy, normally a single character is projected on stage and he speaks whatever he feels or she feels like speaking, and usually you find that that single character is in a particular kind of mood, maybe jubilant or sad or romantic or any kind of mood. And these words sometimes are not very coherent or orderly. Dear students, now in order to kind of concretize the knowledge of soliloquy, we need to see an example of it, and that I am going to tell you. Dear students, this particular example I have selected from William Shakespeare's drama Romeo and Juliet, that falls in scene 2 of Act 2. You must be knowing that Romeo and Juliet both were very nice lovers, and this story is about their love. When this scene starts, by that time both of them, they have fallen in love with each other, but they have not yet expressed their love for each other because they have not got any proper opportunity to express their love for each other. And then One evening, when it's getting darker, Juliet comes on her balcony thinking about her Prince Charming, and she speaks this soliloquy from her balcony. And here you must notice that she is all alone. There is no one around her, and she thinks, and that thinking, if kind of she's there, and if she does not speak, the audience or the reader may not come to know what she's thinking. So she speaks out from her balcony, and she says, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not be, but swan my love, and I will no longer be a Capulet." She says, "O Romeo, Romeo, why are you a Montague?" Montague is the title of the family of Romeo, and Capulet is the title of the family of Juliet. Both the families are enemies of each other. So, Juliet is a little disturbed, a little distressed because she loves Romeo, she wants Romeo, but because of this title, she thinks that their love is not possible. And therefore she says, "Romeo, why are you Romeo Montague? Why are you not a Capulet?" She requests Romeo in her thought only, remember this point, in her thought that he must leave the title of his family. And if she is not able to leave, if not she exactly, if he is not able to leave, he must to tell, and in that case Juliet is ready to leave. But for that, Romeo has to swear that he will never leave Juliet in future. And for that, Juliet is very much ready to leave her family title, that is Capulet. Further, she says, "'Tis but thy name, that is my enemy." She said that it is not you exactly. It is your family name. It is the title of your family that is the enemy. My family may accept you if you leave that title. And she said that she is also ready if, as I told you, Romeo assures Juliet that in future he will never ever leave her. "Thou art thyself, though not a Montague." What's a Montague? There is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. "Thou art thyself," she says. You are yourself. You are not a Montague. What is a Montague? It's not hand. Montague is just a title. It's not hand, it's not foot or arm or face or any other body part of a man to which this Montague belongs. Or be some other name. What is in a name? She asked, what is there in a name? It's very, very important. And this has been asked in exams also have seen. What is there in a name? She asks. A rose smells as sweet as it is. If whenever it is called as rose, it suits the same. And if it is assigned any other name, there will not be any change in the sweet smell of that particular rose. So, there is no meaning of name in that case. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called? She said that Romeo would be same even if he is not called as Romeo, even if he is not called as a Montague. Romeo will possess the same qualities. Romeo will remain the same Romeo. And because of that, she requests that Romeo must leave his family title. And for that, she is ready to leave everything of her. And for that name, which is no part of thee, take all myself, she says that she is ready to sacrifice everything only for this thing, that Romeo will leave the name of his family, will leave the title of his family. This particular soliloquy she speaks from her balcony. She is all alone. You must notice this point, and there is no one. She is not addressing to no or anyone. She is just thinking, and those thoughts are here before us in the form of a soliloquy. So, dear students, after this we will move to the next slide. That next slide is of aside. What is aside? This is here. An aside is also a literary device, similarly as a soliloquy is, but it is altogether a different thing. In an aside, you will find that a character makes a brief comment of 1 or 2 lines on any particular event. Remember, I told you that a soliloquy is a very lengthy speech, but here in an aside you will find that the character makes or speaks 1 or 2 lines, and that too stimulated when he or she is stimulated or prompted by any particular event that is happening. That particular event stimulates any character to speak 1 or 2 lines on that particular event or that particular happening. And this happens in the presence of other characters. Remember in the previous one, in soliloquy I told you that the character is single and he speaks or she speaks on stage to himself or herself, but here you will find that the character does not speak to himself or herself. Rather, the speech is directed towards the audience. And he or she is not alone. That particular character is not alone on stage. There are other characters also. And those characters are shown not to be hearing the speech of the character who is telling that aside. And for that purpose, the dramatist uses a kind of technique. When a character speaks an aside, he turns his face towards the public, or he or she comes a little forward on one corner, either left or right, and faces to the public and then speaks out as if the public is listening, but other characters who are on stage, they are not listening. So this is what is known as an aside. There are other features of an aside that is here. I am going to tell you one by one. It is generally directed towards the audience. That I told you that for that purpose the character turns his or her face towards the public or comes a little ahead on one corner of the stage to tell those 1 or 2 lines, and it reveals the judgments or hidden secrets. An aside kind of opens up or reveals what a character thinks on any particular event in 1 or 2 lines, and it is very much helpful for the development of a plot. Dear students, we have a very nice example of what an aside is, and that I am going to tell you. Here is an example from Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet again, and this example I have taken when Romeo has killed one of the family members of Juliet in a feud, or rather you can call in a fight. And this particular, remember, event takes place when Tybalt is the cousin of Juliet, and there is one Mercutio. All of them, they kind of fight. Romeo does not want to fight, but when Romeo's friend is killed, then in turn Romeo kills Tybalt, who is the cousin of Juliet. And this particular event is being mourned at the home of Juliet, and there the mother of Juliet, Lady Capulet, is there, and Juliet and Lady Capulet, both of them, they talk to each other. Lady Capulet says, "Well, girl, thou weepest not so much for his death as that the villain lives which slaughtered him." Lady Capulet says, "Juliet, you are weeping. You must not weep because the villain who has killed Tybalt is very much alive." Juliet says, "What villain, madam?" Lady Capulet says, "That same villain, Romeo." Lady Capulet says that the villain is Romeo, who has killed Tybalt, your cousin, and he is very much alive. So you must think of the revenge, you must not weep. Juliet says, "Villain and he be many miles asunder." Here is a sight. When both of them they are talking, but when Juliet listens, that Lady Capulet tells that Romeo is villain, Juliet turns her face towards another direction and says, "No, he's not a villain. Villainy and that particular person, they are far apart. Romeo can never be a villain." She thinks, and that's why while uttering this particular line, remember, villain and he be many miles asunder. This is aside. Other statements in this particular example are not aside. This only statement is aside because at that time she turns her face towards another direction. And if it is kind of being dramatized on a stage, at that time the character of Juliet turns towards the public, telling this villain and he be many miles asunder, and then turns again towards Lady Capulet and says, "God pardon him, I do." She says that, "May God pardon that person who has killed my cousin Tybalt. I have already pardoned with all my heart, and at no man like he doth grieve my heart." She says that, "With all my heart I already have pardoned that man, but no one has aggrieved my heart like that man has touched." So you can well notice here how a character turns his or her face towards the public or towards another direction in order to convey what he or she is thinking at that time. So this is a very typical example of what an aside is. And next next is monologue. The term monologue is made of two Greek words, monos, that means single, and logos, that means speech. Again, you will find that a monologue is the speech of a single person. It's a very lengthy speech. And it is different from a soliloquy only in this regard that it always is directed towards some certain audience. It is always in a form of an address, whereas a soliloquy is not in the form of an address. Soliloquy is directed to one's own self, but monologue is directed towards other people. It's a kind of a speech. It is in the form of an address. And then here the next quality of a monologue is this, that the character reveals his her thoughts to the audience or to any other characters who seem to be attentively involved without disturbing the speaker. In a monologue, you will find that there are some listeners, there are some people who are sitting silently, listening attentively, behaving accordingly, but they are not disturbing the speaker. So this is monologue. By now you must have understood the difference between a monologue and a soliloquy, the difference between a soliloquy and an aside. And now I am going to tell you one example of a monologue. And that example of a monologue is here, that I have taken from Julius Caesar's, William Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar. Dear students, this particular scene has taken place when Julius Caesar has been killed by his friends, and Mark Antony, who is the nephew of Julius Caesar, he has been called, and he comes. He takes the dead body of Julius Caesar and comes in front of the public of Rome, and he addresses the public, telling, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him." He says that, "My dear friends, Romans, my dear countrymen, I have come here. Listen to me." He says, "I have come here to bury Caesar. There is no purpose to praise him. I have not come here to praise him, but I have come here to bury him. The evil that men do lives after them, the good is oft interred with their bones." He says that the bad things which a person does, they live even after that person dies. But the good things does not last longer. So let it be with Caesar, and this is same with the Caesar. The noble Brutus had told you Caesar was ambitious, for Brutus is an honorable man. And then he says, Brutus, as he was one of the assassinators, Brutus told that he killed Julius Caesar because Julius Caesar was getting ambitious. And he said that Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He says that all of them who killed Julius Caesar, all of them, they are honorable men. I have not come here to speak on behalf of Julius Caesar. I have not come here to praise Julius Caesar. I have come here to participate in the funeral of Julius Caesar. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. He said that Julius Caesar was my friend. He was very faithful to me. He was just to me. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransom did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? He says that Caesar had won many territories, and the property, money, and the ornaments, whatever he got from those places, he brought them and had handed over to the to this country Rome, to the treasury of this country Rome. And then he asked to the public whether this particular act of uh, love for one's own country in any way shows that he was ambitious. Had he been ambitious, he would have not given those things, those property, money, which he had won from one place or another place. But he all those things he had given in the treasury of the country. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. He says that when poor people of Rome they cried, Caesar also wept with them. He was not of sterner stuff. He was a very soft-hearted person. He loved Rome and he loved Romans. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Dear students, you must not forget this, that here Antony is speaking all alone with the dead body of Julius Caesar, and other people are, there is a large gathering. Lots of people are there, and those people are listening to Mark Antony. So this is called a monologue, where everything is available. There is one speaker, there is a group of listeners. Listeners are listening, very attentively. They are not disturbing, and it's a very lengthy speech. It's not a simple short speech. So I think that you have got what by now what is a soliloquy, an aside, and a monologue, and the differences among them. My dear students, if you have any problem, any doubt regarding these three concepts, you can write me in comment. I will try to remove them as much as possible for me. Thank you.